This daf Yom Yerushalmi Shekalim in the article Ozver edition around daf Tes Amid Aleph Rabbi Chilkiah, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down. Evidently, in the Vilna Yerushalmi, we are on Hamid Bays towards the bottom. I don't have to say that. I don't have the Vilna Yerushalmi in front of me. In the Vilna Bavli, we are the third line down on Dal Amid Bays. So the Talmud Chayil had said earlier in the Masechta in the article pages on that base of Rav Dibur Maskar Bechizkia that he holds that where the word Shal appears in the Yerushalmi, it's not a question in the normal sense, but a position posed by the Amora in the base Medrash, and he asked the Bnei Beis HaMedrash what they thought of his perspective, and he's not asking them to receive an answer, but to rather to seek confirmation. So he says the same thing here, and the article goes with that shot. So Rabbi Chizkiah Amar Chilkiah Amar, sorry, Rabbi Simon Sha'al, Rabbi Simon asked in the base Medrash for confirmation for his position, which is based on what Rish Lakish said, which you saw yesterday, that Lo Lachem Lo Leave No Space Lokenu, that time as in Nechemah they told the Samaritans, this is actually possibly where Zubava and Yeshua are saying this, or Shalem brings it down here. They said to the concerning the Samaritans, leave no space. It's not for you and us to build a house for our God. We together will build the house for Kosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so as Cyrus, the king of Persia, has commanded us. So that's the case. So Rabbi says, Rabbi Simon suggested that so they shouldn't we shouldn't take anything from them having to do with any part of Yerushalayim, even to build water systems and the walls of the city and its towers. Hashem, and this is a different pasuk because the first one was in Ezra Zalah, the second pasuk in the Nehemiah base. Vashiva sons of Ver Vamayim Elokei Hashem Yatzliach Lanu Anachnu Avadav Nakum V'Nivneh Nakum V'Ninu. We will arise and we will build the Yerushalayim. V'Lachem Ein Chelek V'Utzedakah V'Zikaron BiYerushalayim. You have no, as Gemara says, Hashem B'Lachem, to you Ein Chelek, there's no portion Utzedakah and no righteousness, meaning you can't give any donations to us. V'Zikaron and any commemoration Yerushalayim. So that's the case. We should not accept anything to do with construction of Yerushalayim from the Samaritans and from any, I guess, perhaps any could be construed for any outside sources in general. So the Sefer Ofer Yerushalayim, my cousin points out that the Rambam in Paraches of Matnos Siniyah Malach Ches says, Goy shenisnadei v'berek habayis ein mekaven tchila. The Chadchil should not take money from a guy who volunteered money for a Berek HaBayis. Lachem, if you took from him, and Magzir later give back to him. If you might have done it's something specific, or Eben, such as a beam or a stone, Magzir lo, we give back to him. They show him Davar Musim Mikdash. It doesn't have something specific in the Mikdash. Lo lachem lo leave no space. Lo base lokenu. The first pasuk in Ezra. But for sure you accept them even initially ab initio with chatchila. B'das Yisrael hifrashti. So as he says, I'm doing it for the intention that the Jews have for it, not my own intention. Because we didn't say that. It's possible that he meant to give it actually as hekdesh and not as for the shul, and then obviously it'd be a question. Mila B'Hekdesh should be built into the shul, so therefore you obviously so according to the Jews' intention, which is to use it for a shul, not for a temple, not for Beis Hamikdash. And he says, "You don't accept for them for the walls of Yerushalayim." or for the water system. But for you, there is no portion, and giving again the pasuk in Nehemiah. So he said my cousin says that you see perhaps a smack for the Takan Chadatin that it wasn't just a question, it was a proposal. That's why the Rambam passes that way. Okay, I don't think it's necessarily compelling, perhaps. I'm just passing because the Gemara doesn't reject it, right? But in any event, Rambam does paskin that for the same principle applies for the walls of Yerushalayim and its irrigation, etc. It's not irrigation; it's water system because of our Gemara. Okay, the Gemara goes on. These are words of Chayav and Kelbon. It's a quote from Mishnah, obviously. Masnisa Meir. Our Mishnah says that that you're Chayav and Kelbon is going like Meir. The Meir said, Alpha Pisha Ein Shiklo Torah Kabano Torah. Even though his shekel is not the Raisa, his Kabban is the Raisa. So even though he's not mechuyev to give machzis a shekel, he still has to give kabban if he's giving a machzis a shekel. Now all of the mefarshim except for the Pei Moshe basically changed this to masnisa to my timer, because our Mishnah does not say that. Our Mishnah says pretty explicitly that the ones who chayav and kabban are Levim is saying again about Badim Shulchem. It's not Kohanim, not Noshim, not Abadim, not Ketanim. So it goes on. It says Shokel Aidei Eved by Aidei Isha they call them Potter. So the Pei Moshe doesn't change the lashon of the Mishnah of the Gemara does say after Sefta, it's going to Sefta. Shkura b'fniyim, and since they knew the Tosefta well and they were familiar with it, so therefore they said Masnisa, even though it's not really our Mishnah, because it's Tosefta. The kind of Tosefta Perik Aleph apotropsim sheshokol aidei yisomei harei l'chayim l'chabon. Chabon, sorry. Shokol shekel chayim b'chabon. Divrei Meir, right? It says in the beginning of the Brisa that Petropsim who gives by Yitzchak or Chaim Kabon says a shekel Chaim Kabon Divrei Meir. Anybody gives a shekel, it seems like. Chomrim shekel Kabon. It's not only somebody who shekel for himself, I guess, not somebody not Petropis who gives for his sermon. Kamash lo the Reish Brisa Nami Alivrei Meir. So that was going to tell us at the beginning of the Brisa, it says Apotropsim give, that's also going right Meir. So according to Pei Moshe, Masnisa means the Tosefta. Again, all the other questions change it to my time of the right Meir. What's the large right Meir in the Tosefta? Okay, the right Meir, in other words, we're not trying to prove that the ratio of the Tosefta is right Meir, that doesn't really concern us. The question is what right Meir's svara is. So what it says, and that right Meir, Alpha Pisha Ein Shiklo Torah Kabana Torah, even though the shekel is not the rice, the risa. Nevertheless, the kelbon is the risa. So obviously that's labdavka. Pnei Moshe says that klom makashari and nashim shoklim. Like anybody else gives chayim kelbon. So therefore, those who give the same chayim kelbon. So it's not literally the risa, but it's as if it's the risa because it's linked to the machzis shekel. Now, I'm going to go further with this, the way it is in the Gemara itself. As we shall see in a few moments, the Gra and the Takachatin and the Chaim erase almost the entire sugya. So, but in any event, it's either erasing or change dramatically. But in any event, going further with the way it's written in our Gemara, nevertheless, Savar Meir holds with nice and shiklo sholem. You give the shiklo sholem like even for two people. And there's no change being made. You can post because you're giving for two different people. Shupatim Kelvin. You're exempt from Kelvin. And where it says, on my Meir said, Moshe, and there's either a separate statement or giving a reason for what he just said that the parameters were given from the Torah, even though it doesn't mention Kalbon explicitly here in this drasha. So it's either a reasoning or it's an agartha. But if it's a reasoning saying that okay, Kodesh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, this is what they got to give. In my Kodesh Baruch Hu Moshe, and he said, this is what the Loa, he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Zayd knew, because Zayd knew. This is exactly this, and therefore, evidently, Kelbon is its parameters were given in Midoraisa to Moshe Rabbeinu, and it says that Rashi brings down said discussion Moshe Rabbeinu had difficulty with the mitzvah machzis shekel. So what's the difficulty? It's a coin. What's so hard? Kosh Baruch told him there's additional amount of kelbon. This is what actually they have to give. Okay, but as I said, the Gra changes the gears so very dramatically. He says, "My time, right, Meir, right? Sefer Rabbi Meir Hashekel Shiklo Shalem Shu Chayiv Shtei Kabbonos." No, Meir holds very differently. You always have to go to a kelbon, even if you give it Shalosh Shalem. And the Amar Meir Meisek Shem Shiklo Torah Kal Kabbono Torah the Tanya Meir Kimin Meir. So he says. You always have to give to a kelbon, even if you give two people given together. Which is in fact what the Meir said in our Mishnah. So it makes a lot of sense what the Gra is doing. Because the Gra says, the Mishnah said, Meir take kabbonos. That's what it said in the Mishnah. So really the only way to learn our Girsa ultimately, the Girsa which is not like the Gra, is like the Moshe suggests, Sorry, Meir knows the Shikla Shalom Shu Patamina Kelbon, which is what Moshe always does, very often does, when there's a Girsa which doesn't make sense as it is in front of us. So he says, well, it's really bitmiya. It's not benichusa. So he can't hold that way because it's not that way in our Mishnah. Okay, amen. So that's why the and almost everybody else it seems changes the girsa. That's because this language in front of us, is not the Lashon Habar. It's not because it against the our Mishnah. Okay, now and furthermore, another reason to change it is it seems to be a little bit repetitive, as we shall see momentarily. Or at least seems contradicting itself. Nasan Sela Lito Shekel Chayav Shtei Kabbonos. If you gave a Sela to take two, actually before I get this, the Rizbaz says that just points out, it's obvious, but he points out that according to the Meir, kelbon is not on account of the exchange fee, right? It's deraisa. It's part and parcel because the Zayd knew, right? The Torah says there's a kelbon additional regardless of whether you make change or don't make change. Okay, so going further, Nasan Salito Shekel Chayav Shtei Kabbonos. Rabbi Lezer said Meir. It says going back on Meir. Now this is going back on where our Mishnah said Nasan Sel Lito Shekel Chayav Shtei Kabbonos. If you gave a selah to make change, get a machzis a shekel, you have to give two kabbonos. So Gemara is saying that's where Meir holds this. And he holds the selah to the kabbalah to exchange, and he therefore holds you have to give two kabbonos. One for the exchange, so you just made change and got back to shekel, and the other one you give that machzis a shekel, we just got back exchange for the Torah halacha, which you just assuming again that drush is not just Haggadah, but and it's the source for Meir's halacha that Zayd knew that everybody has to give a kelbon besides the machzis hashekel. So the Gra changes the girsa here from the echad shekel shu noisim v'echad selah shu noitel to the echad shekel shu noisim v'echad divrei Torah, as you see in the Tachnich of the Gra and the Tachnich Chadatim, that they change the girsa, and also Reb Chaim goes with that change the girsa as well. Now in the Vilna, though that line, remember echad shekel shu noisim echad shekel selah shu noitel is in parentheses, so the Gra is going to sit with that change that it's echad shekel shu noisim echad selah. What's the change again? Echad shekel shu noisim echad divrei Torah. But then the also probably has non-parentheses, which the article doesn't appear at all. But the Chaim does have it. The Tanya Eluchem V'Kelvon Chulei Kabon Echad Meir Shtei Kabonos. Okay, so that's I don't know that being arrived from the Brisa because it seems to be our Mishnah, but the Gemara does mean that probably does mean arrived from the Brisa. Say that this is right. Our Mishnah is very Meir. And then it says Umar Rav in the Vilna it says Rav Amar, but in the Vilna it says Amar Rav, Amar Rav, and the Chaim has a gears as well. So Rav goes on and says Divrei Akoli. It's not just Amir. So everybody, all Rabbanim would agree to this as well. Now in the Bavli, the gears it says Amar Amir. And made the following statement. So be the Rabbi Divrei Akol he the Amar Meir Echad Shekel etc. But I think we could go with the Gra here and the version which I have in the Yerushalmi itself. This Yerushalmi Rav Amar Divrei Akol he Echad Shekel Shu Neisein Echad Shekel Shu Neitov Echad Lidvar Torah. So everybody you have to give the three kabbanas. And the reason why the Bible says that it's the Mayor obviously is because it's the I say Bavli obviously I mean the Vilna Bavli Yerushalmi, right? So that should be clear. The that's obviously the says Echad Divrei Torah, which sounds like it's very Mayor speaking. So the Gra takes that out. He says, Chadatin says, Logas in Divitor. Really, we don't say if you want to be Divrei Akol, then it shouldn't say Divitor because that we make it specifically by Mayor. So the basic idea is that if you learn like the years of the Gra, so Rav is saying it's Divrei Akol, and saying everybody holds two kabbanas, right? And when you exchange, you do. Again, way to read it is around my Divrei Akoli, Echad Shekel Shu Neisein, Echad Shekel Shu Neito. Everybody agrees that when you are when you make the change, you have to give a kalbon, and when you give it back, you also have to give another kalbon, two kalbonos no matter what. So I think that the easiest way to explain this, I'm not sure anybody actually says this, but I think this is the easiest way to explain it. You know, it says in there were two measures in Yerushalayim in the by the over in the Beis Hamikdash in the sort of special room over Shar Shushan, and they used to always measure with for the craftsmen the materials they were giving with a larger measure, slightly significantly larger. That's more I think for wood and stone, and it's slightly larger, so it's not close to dramatic loss for suppliers of gold and silver. It was only a bit more than the regular amma of which is used in mundane transactions. So slightly larger by usually half of that's about more than an amma for the silver and gold, and a full that's about more for the stone and the wood. But anyway, so anytime you do, in order to avoid meila, anytime you do a transaction with hektish, you have to give a little bit more, or than precise measure. So this is a verse from meila. So therefore, Rav holds that everybody always has to give, you have to give a kabbalah no matter what. And it's Rabbanan, not the Raisa, not like Rav Meir. There's the Chiv Rabbanan in any transaction to have a mekdesh echad noisein when you're giving the maxis shekel give a kabbalah, and echad hanoito, and also when you're taking change from hekdesh. Any transaction you make with hekdesh, you got to add on a little bit more laharki because of meila. Obviously, be meticulous, and even though it's a coin, it's precise. Bear in mind, their coins were based on metal content, on the content of the silver. Unlike our coins today, which are only symbolic, they're based on the content of silver. So therefore, it makes sense to add on a little bit in any direction to make sure that you're giving precisely what you're supposed to give, right? The machzis shekel is truly machzis a shekel, and that's how we do baruch hamila. But to make sure that it's you're giving what you're supposed to give, and of course you're taking back. So also deduct a bit, give a couple to make sure that you're not being boiled hektish. So I think that this is the idea that in order to ancient hektish, to go a bit beyond the measure. So if you have the other Girsa which we have in the Bavli, so then it's Rabma Dibra Koli, and it's quoting a mayor and saying, "Our mayor Echad Shaloshun same Echad Shaloshun Naito, Vechad Divitor." But and then the Gemara says, "I'll die to Rab Shalosh Kabban and say, according to Rab, mayor." I mean, obviously here's but certainly going by mayor, whether it says explicitly Gemara like in the Bavli or like it's just an assumption based on what Rab just said according to Rabbana. So as Rabbi Yirmiyah, Shmuel Yitzchak, B'Shem Rab said, yeah, Shlosh Kabbanis in them. They're according to the Rambam, there's three Kabbanis. Echad Shalosh Nasim, Echad Shalosh Nasim, Echad Dvar Torah. That is in fact the case. Okay, that brings us to the bottom of testing the base in the Vilna. So we will in the article. Sorry. So we'll stop here for today.